I'm going to demonstrate how to do a edge up bevel using the guide. Now in the edge down, I had the platen tilted at this angle at 95.2 degrees for this grind. For edge up, I've rotated it over this direction. It is at 84.7 degrees, which is the reciprocal or inverse, whatever you want to call it. It's on the other side of 90, 5.3 degrees. Okay. So instead of leaving a gap here like I do and having a carrier, I'm just going to grind this thing by itself. It'll hold it in your hand. This is really similar to freehand grinding, only you have a little bit of assistance. So I'll put that on there, let that set. Find the rest of this thing. Here we go. Same idea, just get it snug. Don't need it super tight. Don't want it flopping around. A little bit loose right here, I think. Alright. Put an 80 grit belt back on that. Go ahead and use that yellow one that's there. I'll do the same thing for the single grinding edge up that I did before. I've marked an 80 grit target line, 120 grit target line. Got the center line marked here so I can watch it. And 80 and 120 on that side. Go ahead and mark my plunge line. I'll start at the 120 and move down. Oops. I'll clamp this on. This is to help me set my plunge. Alright, so this is what I did before. Got my offset. My plunge target line right there. And spin this back. Let me check my tracking. I'll bump that in a bit more. What about there? Alright, now the motion that I had before, I would drag this thing up and down. This time, roll it out like that. Alright, so I'll bring that in there, and then I'm going to roll it out. And that's where it takes a little more difficulty. I used to do this in the very beginning. When I first built the guide, I ground edge up and ended up flipping it over, and I grind edge down mostly. But I'm doing this for demonstration for people to see. Okay, so then you just kind of roll it up, and you do need to watch. This takes a little more muscle memory, a little more skill. It's not near as even, so you got to watch it. Take some practice. But you got your target line so you can control. Back here, we'll move over a little bit. Move over again. That's pretty good. I'm going to stop there. That's going to go right up the front of my plunge line. With some practice, you can get pretty good. I'm not pretty good. I don't practice this. But if you were to practice this, you'd get good. You can see where I wiggle right there. This isn't a normal method for me. Keep an eye on your target line, getting close to it. I'm not having to move the guide in, I just keep coming up a little bit. I'll move it in if I need to. I'm using kind of the top of this as a reference. Crooked, kind of moved up here a little bit more than there, so I need to catch up. Catch up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and move this in a little bit. Closer, about of an inch or less along there. The plunge is tracking right, nice up there. Almost there. About a 32nd of an inch here and about a 16th of an inch there, so I'll try to even it out. That looks pretty close. Still a little bit low right there. That brought it up a bit, so I feel pretty good. I'm on the line, it's pretty straight. I'm going to go ahead and change belts to the 120. Alright, so I'm changing belts to the 120. Sorry I'm yelling, I've got my headphones on. I'm not sure how loud I'm talking. Check the tracking. Alright, go ahead and put this straight back in. Not that far. Lock it up. I'm going to get some close up here. Try to get a little close up. Alright, so you can see that this method is possible. It takes a little bit more skill level, a little bit more muscle memory. As you working towards your targets. I don't do this hardly at all. This is probably the first time in a year and a half or more that I've ground edge up like this. And so you can see that, you know, with a little practice, you can see how it's kind of wavy in the beginning, but now it's kind of evened out as I figured it out a little bit again. Or, you know, like falling off or like riding a bicycle, falling off a bike. Alright, so same principles as grinding edge down, other than grinding edge up, you're controlling the blank a little bit more. Alright, so now I'm going to head up here. It's about 5/16 of an inch from there to the next target. Take that up at 120. Moving. Plunge line's going straight up. Not quite halfway through. closer to the target. I lost the target. I'll see if I can redraw it. So I used a Sharpie and I redrew the target on there. Getting close to it. That looks pretty even actually, about a 1/16 of an inch all the way across. One or two more passes to get it. Got one more pass. Hard to beat that. That's right in there. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I feel pretty good about that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. You can see that I've got a few thousandths down there on the plunge left to get. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before when I was grinding edge down. I'll move the guide in a little bit. Just a tiny amount to clean that up. Alright, I'm going to apply some Sharpie right here. What this does is tells me when I've cut the plunge deep enough that I'm at the level of the rest of the bevel. I don't want to cut this area too deep, but I don't want to leave a little ridge sticking out either. So I'll move the guide over a very tiny amount. Very tiny amount. Maybe not that tiny, we'll see. Guide the wrong way. Not there yet. Just a little bit more. I'm going to back this up some. Come in a tiny amount. Alright, so I've cut right down the edge of the plunge line, which is where I want it to go. I'm not quite deep enough yet. You can see that it's just starting to touch here. So I'm going to go until the black is just gone, and then I'll stop. And that's what the black does, is it tells me when I've hit that level with the plunge. Otherwise, there is a tiny little ridge left right there where I'm grinding the plunge down. Alright, so that's the plunge. Came out good. It's right on the target line. This isn't as even as it could be if I practiced more often. Like I said, I haven't done this in over a year and a half at least. So this is pretty close to freehanding. But you still have the guide to control your angle. You can see the edge is even. And then you would flip this over and grind the other side using the same process to get that side done. Now I use the target lines. Those keep me from scrapping blanks because they let me know when I need to do something different. Because if I hit this line before I'm at my target line here, if I hit this line before I'm at the target line here, I can make angle adjustments without without running over on one of the others. So if I hit this one too fast, I can change the angle and start cutting more down here and working towards that line without allowing that line to get farther up, and vice versa. If I hit this line first and this one's not as high as I want, I can steepen the angle, and then this will start creeping up here without taking any more off down here. It takes some practice, of course.